Tonight, we're conducting a financial autopsy on the American dream. But we're not going to start this explainer with a bunch of sweeping economic data. Instead, let's start at a kitchen table. Picture a couple. Let's call them Lucas and Michelle. Right now, they've got a pre-approval letter for $480,000 sitting right there on top of a stack of unopened mail. Their parents have already texted them congratulations, but somewhere deep down in their guts, something is telling them that this doesn't feel like winning. Actually, it feels more like signing a waiver.
It's 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and Michelle does the one thing nobody in the entire real estate transaction process wants her to do. She opens a calculator. Within minutes, you can feel that micro-level tension setting in. She realizes the smiling people sending them all these documents, they aren't really on their team. They're on the team of the closing, because the math simply does not add up. And honestly, that quiet realization right there at the kitchen table is the perfect starting point for our forensic investigation into the 2026 housing market.
Now, for anyone out there feeling the deep anxiety of a housing market that seems to be completely slipping out of reach, I want you to consider this deeply counterintuitive reality. Being priced out right now, it might actually mean you are dodging a massive financial bullet disguised as the American dream. Not being able to buy right now isn't a failure. It might legitimately be the first piece of genuine financial luck you've had this entire decade.
Part 1. The real estate reality. When we look at the macro data, it shows the median home now ruthlessly consumes nearly 48% of an American household's income. We are firmly in the punishing range.
Consider the sheer historic weight of this number, 5.0. That is the national price-to-income ratio. To put that in perspective, from 1975 all the way through the late 1990s, this number sat right around 3.0. Today, it takes 5 full years of a median American's entire pre-tax salary to buy a home. Every paycheck, every bonus, every single tax refund, piled up for 5 straight years. This ratio is now worse than it was at the 2006 peak. It is literally the worst home price-to-income ratio in modern American history. Okay, let's dive into this. Part 2. Uncovering the hidden costs, the stuff way beyond the mortgage.
Let's look at a highly realistic scenario. Let's say you purchase a $400,000 home. You put down an $80,000 down payment, and you finance the remaining $320,000 at a 6.3% rate. This brilliantly illustrates the banking trap. In month 1, out of a $1,980 payment, a whopping $1,680 just evaporates into pure interest. Only $299 actually goes toward paying down your loan. That means 85% of their payment is going directly to the bank's earnings. And this deeply lopsided math, it won't actually flip in favor of the buyer until year 19 of the loan. When you zoom out and look over the full 30-year life of the loan, the reality is stark. They borrowed $320,000, right? But they will pay the bank almost $713,000. Under this scenario, the buyer pays for 2 houses, but only gets to keep 1. And remember, that is the best case scenario. That assumes absolutely nothing goes wrong. But houses have opinions, and as any owner will tell you, those opinions are incredibly expensive. Because then comes the hidden bleed. Once you actually own the home, the ecosystem around it just begins to drain your wealth. Take homeowners insurance. In America, it has risen a staggering 46% since 2021 alone. That is 3 times the rate of inflation. Insurance now makes up the highest share of a typical monthly mortgage payment on record.
Now keep in mind, that's just the national average. When you look at the extreme regional pain, it paints a much darker picture. Down in Florida, the average premium is approaching $8,300. Existing owners are just getting crushed by 97% rate hikes in a matter of a few years. Over in California, major insurers have entirely stopped writing new policies, or they're actively non-renewing tens of thousands of homes. The underlying risk math for these companies has fundamentally broken down.
And all of this is compounded by the quiet, grinding tax of home maintenance. You know, the old rule of thumb was saving about 1% of the home's value every year. Forget that. Maintenance costs have jumped 42% in just 5 years. Labor is up, materials are up. Honestly, it's no wonder that the most honest survey number to emerge recently shows that maintenance and hidden costs are now the #1 regret of current homeowners. It's just a slow, grinding tax of everything that breaks.
And then you have the absolute nightmares, the sudden, completely unavoidable assessments. Following the tragic Surfside condo collapse, new laws in Florida are forcing condo associations to maintain real structural reserves starting in 2026. Because of this, Owners are receiving certified letters for structural repairs demanding $180,000 and in some cases up to $400,000 due in just 90 days. These owners can't refinance because the condo's value has plummeted, and they can't sell because nobody will buy. They are entirely, completely trapped.
So let's look at the alternative. Part 3, renting versus buying. Reimagine Mac.
The real estate industry rarely wants you to sit down and do the actual math of renting. Across the 50 largest U.S. metros, mortgaging a home right now costs 38% more than renting a comparable home. On average, in places like San Francisco, owning costs a staggering 190% more than renting. Austin is 88% more. Los Angeles is 89% more. The gap between paying a mortgage and paying rent has widened dramatically.
So, let's play this out. What happens if Lucas and Michelle take that $80,000 down payment, decide to rent instead, and aggressively compound that money in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund, adding in the monthly savings they get from renting? Assuming a pretty conservative 7% real return, meaning after inflation, in 10 years, they have $244,000. In 20 years, $570,000. In 30 years, a massive $1.22 million in today's dollars. That immense wealth-building power of compounding liquidity is the true opportunity cost of buying a house. In most scenarios today, the disciplined renter with index funds simply ends up wealthier.
Now you might say, but my parents tripled their money on their house. And while previous generations may have done exactly that, Nobel Prize-winning economist Robert Shiller provides a much broader lens. With data spanning over 130 years, from 1890 all the way to 1997, real U.S. home prices, adjusted for inflation, were essentially flat. The whole idea of the home as a guaranteed money printing machine, it's a recent 25-year historical anomaly that people have mistakenly adopted as an absolute law of physics. Over the last century, the stock market has vastly outperformed housing in real terms.
Which brings us to part 4, the marketing machine. Selling the dream. Why does this myth persist? Well, because tens of millions of dollars are spent annually to convince you that a 30-year debt instrument is the ultimate symbol of American freedom.
To really understand the illusion, we have to forensically dismantle their most durable slogan. You know the one. You're throwing money away on rent. Well, on Lucas and Michelle's $400,000 house, their unrecoverable sunk costs, we're talking interest, property tax, insurance, maintenance, and HOA fees, total over $34,000 in the first year alone. That is money they will literally never see again. If they rented a comfortable home for $2,000 a month, their sunk cost is $24,000 a year. So the math says owning actually throws away $10,000 more per year in unrecoverable costs than renting does, all while simultaneously destroying your liquid capital.
But wait, what about the famous tax benefits of owning? Well, the cold reality is that for the average buyer, those are mostly gone. Today, only about 10% of taxpayers even itemize their deductions. Mortgage interest deduction claims are down 59%, and 60% of the remaining benefit flows almost exclusively to households earning over $200,000. Even real estate trade associations quietly acknowledge on their own platforms that the tax code no longer strongly incentivizes owning over renting for the average person.
So the crucial point is, when does it make sense? Part 5, when you should actually buy. The honest carve-outs, because buying can still make sense, but it requires strict rules of engagement.
Here are 5 strict mathematical rules of engagement. Step 1. The price-to-rent ratio in your specific local market absolutely must be under 15. Step 2. You need to be confident you're staying for at least 7 to 10 years just to absorb the massive transaction costs. Step 3. You can put down a real 20% without draining your emergency fund. Step 4. Your total housing costs remain strictly under 28% of your gross income. And Step 5. The house represents less than 30% of your total net worth. If you hit all 5, buying works beautifully for family stability. But if you miss them, you are taking on incredibly dangerous concentrated risk.
So for the younger generations observing this market and feeling stressed, you are not behind. The median age of a first-time home buyer in America right now is 40. The market share of first-time buyers has hit a record low of 21%. Nearly 75% of American households cannot afford a median-priced home today. You aren't failing. You are part of a generation responding entirely rationally to a broken, artificially constrained bubble market. Returning one last time to Lucas and Michelle at their kitchen table, they closed the laptop. That $80,000 sitting in their savings account? It isn't a missed opportunity. It is their armor.
It's not a down payment anymore, it's optionality. It's the freedom to move for a better job, to easily ride out a recession, to not be bankrupted by a single structural assessment. Right now, it is the most valuable thing they own, but only if they refuse to hand it over to a bank for the privilege of a suffocating loan.
Because at the end of the day, the true trap isn't renting. It's committing to a financial structure designed for a bygone era. Refuse to become a cautionary tale for a broken financial system. The numbers are right in front of you. The real question is, will you have the courage to trust the math over the myth?